It's not a secret that our school systems must change. Our way of schooling students was created during the Industrial Revolution, when workers needed just enough education to read a manual for factory work and not revolt against the government. Our ways of questioning students enable them to question the course material and are really central to this change. There's a direct connection between the era in which we're teaching and the types of questioning that we use. In the industrial era, we needed assembly workers, and to do that, we used point questioning. Questions that had a single answer that in turn drove home the instructor's point. In the information era, we need innovation, which uses designed questioning. The type where students are taught to identify their own relevant questions and work toward a solution. Unfortunately, we still teach with industrial models of education. For at least the past 3 decades, the average student has been asked point questions. Of all the questions a student is asked in school, about 60% are lower level. 20% are higher level. And another 20% are procedural. Such as, this is where where do you put your work when you're finished? While these statistics are horrible for an information era education, what is worse is that higher level questions often don't elicit higher level responses. In other words, the 20% of higher level questions that teachers ask are often met with and accepted as lower level answers. Let me give you an example. A teacher might ask a question such as, how is World War II similar or different from World War II, World War I versus World War II? In reply, the student might respond, World War I had trenches. This is from my own experience observing classrooms, by the way. And I really want you to think about this for a minute. The question was, in my opinion, a little overly broad, but was asking students to analyze the two wars, demonstrating their knowledge of each. Furthermore, the question had multiple answers from which students could really get into a comparative analysis. What the teacher got, and actually accepted, was a response that didn't answer the question at all. All the student did was give a feature of World War I. In fact, the most thinking that went into this answer was actually avoiding the question itself. To get higher level responses from higher level questions, we must learn to extend the play beyond the whistle. This term comes from sports, where players are taught not to give up on a play, not until they hear the whistle, but until the whistle ends. Thus, we don't want to accept a student's answer to a higher order question until he or she gives us an answer, but really until he or she can't make any more relevant questions toward the deeper understanding of the lesson. Our rule, then, is to extend the play through at least 3 different types of higher order questioning. So for our purposes, when we say at least three different types, we're using four. We're thinking about analysis, application, synthesis, and evaluation. So how do we do that? First, let's say that we're finishing our unit about World War II, and we want students to understand the differing experiences of war and how they often drive differing outcomes of war. So we ask our question, how is World War I similar to or different from World War II? And our student gives his response. Well, World War I had trenches. To this point, the play's still going. The whistle hasn't blown because we haven't gotten a complete answer yet. Our next move is to say, and how is that different from World War II? The student might respond, it's different because World War II fought using moving lines. Especially with tanks. Now we are beginning to hear the whistle sound. The question has been answered, but we need to continue if we're going to extend the play beyond the whistle. We might counter, how are those different for the soldiers involved? The student could reply, continuing to move allowed soldiers in World War II to feel like they had hope to fight and live another day, unlike World War I, where they were kind of sitting ducks. At this point, the whistle is loud and clear, but there's still one more question we have to ask to use our rule of extending it at least three types. So we might ask, in what ways might this difference affect the tenor of the war? Well, because of hope in World War II, increase better feelings about the purpose of the war, and increased support at home, the student might reply. Now the whistle has finished sounding. Notice that we asked an initial question, which was an analysis, a compare and contrast. Right? But we didn't just say that the student was right and move on. In the process, we advanced our lesson using an application. So how is that different for the soldiers' lives? And then a synthesis where we're asking the student to really think about how what they know about the war compares and contrasts or works with what they know about the home front that they've already known. And the student was able to make those connections, not just between the wars, but between the different psychological effects of war on the front and at home. Using our rule of what beyond the whistle means, we could also have asked a synthesis question, an analysis, and then an application, or any combination of these four. This is not something that we have to go analysis through synthesis. This can be changed. There's no right order here. But by pushing the student, the teacher was able to evaluate the student's understanding and catch any potential misunderstandings. Extending the play beyond the whistle with a number of other students using the same initial question provides a much richer discussion through more connections and better evaluation through more student data.